My boyfriend spent the weekend at his EXS apartment. Long post and I apologize in advance. My 31F boyfriend, 40M, was very upfront at the beginning of our relationship that he was close with his recent, and LT, 6 months, ex-girlfriend. He explained that he has a difficult time making friends and what he found with her was important. They talk every day and more often than not FaceTime as well. She lives a state away now. I am, truthfully speaking, insecure at times because of my past relationships. But I really liked him, so I told him I would be accepting of this friendship and may just feel weary at times. As our relationship progressed, I decided I was comfortable with him meeting my friend group. I have a very strong relationship with them as I am not close with my family. We had our annual float trip planned and I invited him to come on the final day to meet them. Only because we had previously booked the cabin rental prior to me and him becoming more serious. There just simply wasn't room for him to stay the night as well. He said maybe, but that he thought he was invited to a wedding that weekend, Saturday to be exact, and hadn't officially received the invite yet. This couple was friends of his ex, she had already received her invite. So if they did extend an invitation to him, he would like to go. He said his ex was reaching out to them soon to make sure he was in fact invited. I did find this odd, because if you're invited to a wedding you would simply receive an invite. I told him this bothered me, but since this was all so new I would try my best to be understanding. A couple weeks went by and the week of the float trip arrived. While we're talking on the phone, he mentions he is absolutely going to the wedding. And furthermore he needed to take a few things to his ex and would be driving down to her on Thursday. He planned to stay the night Thursday night at her apartment. They would drive back to his house Friday and stay the night there. He claimed they would go to the wedding together Saturday and she would find her own ride to the airport Sunday morning hopefully. This did not in fact happen and she stayed a second night with him and he drove her to the airport, I later found out. I became very upset at this information. It went from going to a wedding with his ex to spending the entire weekend with her. And telling me only a few days in advance when I've been mentioning this float trip for weeks seemed like he was prioritizing that relationship over ours. I have been in some very unhealthy relationships and my trust level is unfortunately low. I know this about myself and I communicated this to him thoroughly. He told me most people are not able to maintain relationships with their exes, which in his opinion is a sign of emotional immaturity. I know my view of healthy relationships is skewed and I want more than anything to be healthy this go around. The fact that he did communicate it beforehand made me think he was being possibly genuine. But every time I tell him I'm upset or concerned he just goes back to the emotional maturity talk. I can't help but feel I'm being slightly manipulated. Yay, he is creeping on you. If she specifically reached out to make sure he was invited and he stayed multiple nights overnight with her. It's a problem. No significant other should ever be staying with their ex overnight, much less an entire weekend. Especially if he ditched your plans to be with her. If the reason they broke up is because she had to move out of state, I would say he still has feelings for her and likely hooked up with her over the weekend. Woozy face. It is manipulation. In a relationship there are things you can do on your own, and things that you need to communicate with your partner. Spending time with an ex like this is something that needs to be communicated with the partner. He knows this, but he's trying to pretend like he shouldn't have to do that to force the relationship dynamic where you can't control him. Mind you, this isn't an unreasonable type of control, that's the best case. Worst case is he just started hooking up with his ex again and wanted to try it out before he cast you aside. Either way he knows what he's doing is wrong, and if his response to your concerns is to pretend you're the problem, he's manipulating you and it might be a sign that you are involved in something you don't want. I feel like the wedding was fake and they simply planned to hook up. GTFO. Run to a therapist and end this part of your story. Run. Save yourself thousands of dollars and months, possibly years of therapy. Run. Do not walk out of this relationship. Run. If he had emotional maturity, he would not be dismissing your concerns. He would be spending extra time reassuring you that you don't need to be worried and he super deluxe cares for you. I'd take a break from him. Go spend time with your friends. Then maybe just nope out of this relationship. I'm gonna tell you a secret very few people actually understand. Opposite-sex friends with no romantic or sexual attractions are insanely rare, as in they almost never exist. Boyfriend's friend called me fat when we were out to dinner. I'm curious if my response was dramatic. My F26 boyfriend, M41, of a year, and I went out with his friend George, M35-ish, last night for some sushi. I was a little bit hesitant because sometimes I feel uncomfortable around George friend because of his views on women. He can make jokes and be super inappropriate, and I have just let it go in the past. Anyway, we are all having a decent time. They got drinks, and I think George had a couple by the time we got there. I was completely sober because I'm on the drug Accutane, so I can't drink on it. A little backstory: I recently quit a dipping nicotine habit of 12 years and have been free of it for over a month. This caused me to gain maybe 5 pounds. When I was younger I had an eating disorder, so this wasn't a super comfortable thing for me. I'm a pretty fit person but still self-conscious about my body. 5 feet 3 inches, maybe 140 pounds. I said something and George responded, "It's because you've gotten fatter," or something to that extent. I honestly feel silly because I usually have a good handle on my emotions, but I immediately started tearing up and crying from his comment. George and my boyfriend were just staring at me and George was deflecting. Then boyfriend makes a comment about me being sensitive and says how he made me cry from a similar comment a couple weeks ago. Then George gets up and comedically tries hugging me from behind, and I was super uncomfortable, saying like, "Please stop." I excused myself and was just nauseated, could barely even eat, I was so upset. I just wasn't happy for the rest of dinner. When we left and got into the car later I talked to my boyfriend about it and told him why it upset me, and we had a good talk about it. Overall I feel just disappointed that my boyfriend would allow one of his friends to disrespect me like that. I would never let one of my friends talk to him like that. I don't know. Am I being overly sensitive? Edit. Additional questions. Is it too much of an expectation that my boyfriend would stand up for me in that situation? What would have been the appropriate reaction from him? Too long, did not read. Boyfriend's friend called me fat. Boyfriend didn't do anything about it and now I am upset still. You are not overly dramatic. I couldn't help but notice you and your BFS age gap. And I don't know if this will help your situation at all, but when I was 27 and my ex-boyfriend was 42, we had a relationship where my needs, wants, problems were always made to feel small. Or I was made to feel crazy. Someone older than you should be wise enough to build you up and be empowering you. I feel like these men are breaking you down. You are not overreacting. Make sure you always put yourself and your needs first. Is your boyfriend in shape? Is George a lady killer? Something in me highly doubts it. He didn't just let his friend slide, he tried comforting his friend while you sat there and cried. No, you didn't overreact. Why are you with a guy who's 15 years older than you that both calls you fat and allows his friend to call you far? No. And your boyfriend lacks a spine. Weak boyfriend. Find a new one. Let him date George. Never let your boyfriend negate your emotions and invalidate how you feel. Never let someone speak to you that way, period. You also mention you had an eating disorder, and saying that to someone who has, can really trigger them. I bet he doesn't look good at all and has no room to even speak on your appearance. 26 and 41. Pause. BF doesn't stick up for you but is 15 years older. Dump him, sis. Get rid of the boyfriend. How do I, 23M, tell women I have a micro without it being weird? The outside you would think I'm just some dude who is in good shape, is happy and has things going his way. Which is my problem. At 23 I have avoided dating like the plague because few experiences in my teens have made me terrified of women. Not because I don't like them or I'm against dating, it's just that I'm aware that I am the embodiment of everything society hates on a man, which is that I have a severe micro. I will be the smallest you have ever been with or had. From nurses laughing at me, to girls telling the entire school, I honestly made myself a person that shuts out the world. Having this problem is what made me realize that humanity is truly an unfair game of genetics and that I should just avoid women so I don't hurt myself mentally much more than it already does. I already have to see society not stand up to my problem. Men with small ones have to be the most ridiculed demographic as we have no social defense. My problem is that it is my only problem. Other than that I speak 5 languages, I work out and I'm not short. It's like a curse, as a girl told me once, you are like false advertisement, and I couldn't agree more. Most people think men with micros are fat dudes who living in their mom's basement with underlying mental health issues. But within all that, I really want to try. I see men who are far worse than me get women, but their defect is one that is up front for everyone to see and judge. Letting women know about my problem is very important to me as I'm tired of being backhanded by comments I'm too nice to have a comeback to. No man recovers from a woman insulting your small p. It's like the king of all insults. Nothing you say can hurt her more than my problem already hurts me. I just want to know when it's the most appropriate time to tell them. First date, second date? Right away? I just don't want women to feel like I'm entrapping them into something they obviously hate. Whenever the talk of having a physical relationship comes up, I think it would be appropriate. As long as you can please her one way or another and she can please you, you'll both be happy. The people you've run into, in short, are rude. They're nasty. They're the same people that would cry if you insulted their nose or the way they laugh or something else they can't control. But that means that they aren't worth the effort you're giving to think about the mean things that they said. The right person will love you for you, which sounds stupid and cheesy, but it's true. Bro, don't let your penis define your self-worth. After couple of date, when you decide to get intimate, it's better to bring this up. Also, you have tongue, learn to use it wisely. As a woman, I personally prefer the foreplay than the sex. If you're willing to please her and focus on her body, then she'll love it. Oral, fingering. Maybe even be open to using vibes, dildos? But make sure you're also getting sexual pleasure too. I'm going to be real. All penis-centric sex is boring, no matter the size. You have a whole entire body and so does your partner. This singular focus on dicks is lazy fucking in my opinion. You don't actually really want to be fucking people who think dicks are all there so to sex, even if you were average sized. If you can get your partner off, then that's all that matters. Mouths, hands, and toys exist. Use them. Change your mindset. The sexual organ is not the be-all or end-all of things. Happiness, even sexual happiness, comes from within. Be comfortable with who you are. This will set the tone for current and future relations. I don't have much advice to offer, but I am disgusted at how unprofessional the nurses were that have laughed at you. Many people already struggle enough with their bodily flaws, and having nurses, doctors preach, "We are all the same," only for a select few to mock us for our flaws. I am so sorry you had to experience any of that. Definitely do not bring it up on a first date. When a physical relationship starts being talked about, happening, that's when it is appropriate to bring it up. Also, have you been to therapy at all, for this? A therapist would probably be able to help you navigate this situation a bit better than Reddit. You're not a false advertisement. Your body grew the way it did and there's not much you can do to control that. Find yourself a sexually adventurous person. Dildos come in all shapes and sizes and can easily be bigger than the biggest dick in the world. There is oral. There is anal. Sex is not necessarily penetrative. I suggest being upfront about it with girls you go out on dates. Wait after the first date though, lol. And you probably will have to weed out a lot of shallow people. People open about sex do know that size is just one thing that does not matter that much. BF, 35 male, has a weird relationship with his sister, F40. So I should preface this by saying I myself have 4 siblings. I noticed a couple of things that seem very odd to me about my boyfriend's relationship with his sister. We once watched a movie, the three of us in his bed, and his sister was leaning her head on his shoulder most of the time, and was very physically close to him. If you took a snapshot of us in that moment, you would have thought they were a couple. Another instance happened at a family event. They were sitting next to each other, and she would sit so close she'd put her knee on top of his, for pretty long periods of time. He would not even budge. She does other weird shit like says, "Eat me," when they bicker back and forth, and he would say things like, "Suck my dick." I grew up with many siblings and none of us have this type of dynamic. I've never even seen my friends have this type of relationship with their siblings. I confronted my boyfriend about this behavior because it's weird when I hang out with him and his sister is getting more action than me. I told him it makes me really uncomfortable and it's weird. He became extremely offended. He made me feel like a creep for even bringing it up. But part of me can't help but wonder if things get really weird when I'm not there. At one point in our relationship we were long distance, and he'd always tell me he was going off to watch a movie with his sister, usually in his bed. Is this a normal sibling dynamic? Am I overreacting? It should also be noted his sister has a history of messed up relationships with men, dating teachers, dating men 35 years older than her, married men, etc. And #X200B. TL. Dr. BF, M35, has an odd relationship with his sibling that weirds me out. Y'all, before you take a ride on this shit train, please read through the comments for more insight. You might hate me even more after reading through them, but at least you'll have a few more details to come at me with. Update. We talked about it again. He told me that he was offended by the way I brought it up, but after some reflecting he too wishes she wouldn't do it. He said he doesn't know how to deal with her sometimes. Sounds like a normal close sibling relation to me. I would also be really mad if you told me, your sister is getting more action than me, that is gross. Why sexualize their relationship? I also say suck my dick to everyone and I don't even have a dick. You are overreacting. Those actions by themselves sound pretty innocuous. The bigger concern to me is that you're jealous of his sister. If you're feeling underappreciated or ignored, you can say that without attacking his relationship with his sister. You are being way too insecure and oversexualizing everything they do. Casual affection is perfectly normal, like God their legs are just on top of each other is not like they are cuddling or something. You're going to destroy your relationship because of you're jealous of his sister. Kinda old for that, but I'm not close to my siblings, so. Sounds like my relationship with my sister. On the rare occasions we meet. The real question becomes, is there more, or have you described more or less everything? WTF. My girlfriend also was jealous of my sister and one of my male friends. For your mental health, you have to calm down and maybe leave the relationship. Even go to therapy. Good luck. My brother and I were always super close. In fact, when I was little and scared, I'd go jump into bed with him. We were kids of a single parent and learned on each other quite a bit. I think it was because we were all we had, the two of us against the world, since my mom was working 3 jobs and was never home. It was never sexual. Ever. I don't know if we would have been as close after the teenage years because he passed away when I was 19. Doesn't seem like huge red flags to me, but then again I haven't actually seen how they interact. His relationship sounds perfectly normal. Have you thought that maybe your experience with sibling relationships isn't the perfect model? I would watch movies with my sister in bed. We couldn't watch them in the lounge room because they were too violent for our younger brother. Why would a sibling budge or move away from a sibling touching them? It would be a bit telling if they did, because it's not normal to be so uncomfortable with your sibling you can't stand them touching you. I also have told my sister to suck my dick, she tells me the same. You know it isn't literal, right? None of this relationship sounds crazy or out there for siblings.